In this last video, we're going to talk about converting from degrees to radians or vice versa, either way. Now, anytime we do a conversion, we're going to multiply by what's called your conversion factor. So let's start right here with our 75 degrees. I'm going to multiply by a fraction, and then it's going to turn it, that fraction will turn this into radians. Now, here's how this fraction works. I'm going to put degrees on the bottom of this fraction and radians on the top. And here's why I'm specifically doing that. Because we've learned that if you have something on top and bottom that's the same, it will cancel. So I have degrees on top and degrees on bottom. Those will cancel out. And then, hey, all I'm left with is radians. So now I need to fill in this fraction. What this fraction is going to be is basically a really complicated looking 1. Because I can multiply by 1 and it doesn't change anything. So I'm going to multiply by this really complicated looking 1, and I'm not changing it. It's still 75, but it's going to change it from degrees to radians. Now, here's what I mean by a complicated 1. I know that a full circle, 0 to 360 degrees, is the same as 0 radians to 2 pi radians. So 360 degrees and 2 pi radians are the same thing. However, I also then know that if I go all the way over here to 180 degrees, that's going to be the same as pi radians. So 180 degrees is the same thing as pi radians. So I could use 360 degrees on bottom and 2 pi radians on top, because those are the same thing. Or I could use 180 degrees on bottom and pi radians on top, because those are the same thing. It's just a really complicated looking 1. Now, I'm going to use 180 and pi because they're smaller numbers, which is going to make our answer easier. You could use the bigger numbers. It's just going to be more complicated in the end. So I have pi over 180 degrees. My degrees have canceled. I have radians left. And I'm left with 75 times pi on top and 180 on bottom. Now, I do want to simplify this fraction. So I notice, hey, 5 goes into both of those. So let's divide the top and bottom by 5. Well, 75 divided by 5 is 15. 180 divided by 5 is 36. Well, that's not as simple as it can go yet. That 15 divided by 36. 3 goes into both of those, so let's divide them both by 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5 pi. 36 divided by 3 is 12. And now 5/12, that's as simple as that goes. Nothing goes into both of those anymore. So that is my final answer. Okay, let's try example 5 where we now go the other direction. So I start with radians, 11 pi fourths. I'm going to times by my really complicated 1 to get something that's in degrees. So this time I'm going to go opposite. I want my degrees on top and then I want my pi on bottom. So notice I took that fraction from up here and I flipped it. Because now I have this pi on bottom, this 180 on top. And now my pi cancels. So now I'm just left with my degrees. So you can pick whether you want the 180 on top or bottom so that stuff cancels like you want it to. So now I'm left with 11 times 180 on top, and I'm left with a 4 on bottom. And that you can just type into your calculator and you should get 495 degrees. Okay, let's try example number 6, last one. I'm going to have you pause the video, try this one out on your own, multiply by your really complicated 1 in order to change that into degrees. So pause the video, try this one out using the same steps we did before, and then come back and see how you did. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. I put pi on bottom, so those pi's would cancel. So 180 goes on top, and degrees are what's left, which is what I wanted. So I end up with -7 times 180 on top, and my 6 on bottom, which I put into my calculator to get -210. So all this is saying is -7 pi 6 radians is the same measurement as -210 degrees. We're saying those are the same, just 2 different ways to measure it. So that should be it for this lesson. You should be able to get started on your Canvas homework now.